Hello everyone, welcome to the first in a series of videos regarding firearm safety. As I said, this is a series. Throughout the series we will start with this video, which is specifically an introductory type video. It will be followed by a video specifically about firearm safety, and then probably about a dozen videos, each one focused on a specific firearm. This is targeted specifically toward novice shooters, people with little or no shooting experience, and the specific target audience is actually my extended family, people who are going to go shooting with us in a few weeks. This is to help each of them get ready a little bit quicker than if we have to sit down prior to go shooting and go through all this material. So this is introductory in nature. And we're going to start by using the things I have on the table in front of me here. And the camera view is kind of over my left shoulder, so hopefully you can see that well. We use these things to talk about specific terminology relating to firearms. I have here a rifle and a handgun, and I'll use most of the handgun just because of its smaller size. It's easier to use. We're going to start by talking about probably the most important part of a gun, which is the barrel. And the barrel, of course, is a long, skinny thing, but it has parts with specific names. The front end, the business end, is called the muzzle. Okay? And the back end, which you can't see because it's inside the slide, that back end is called the breech. And at the breech end of the barrel is actually a very important part called the firing chamber, or sometimes just the chamber. I'm going to shine a light in there. Hopefully you can see that. Just looks like a black hole, but that's actually a very specially shaped part at the breech end of the barrel that is specifically shaped to accommodate the ammunition that is used in this specific gun. Next we'll talk about the sights. The sights are either on top of the barrel, or in this case they're on top of the slide that encloses the barrel, and that's simply the way that you use to point the gun where you want it to. So for this handgun, here's the front sight, here's the back sight. On the rifle, it has a telescopic sight, which you can see here. The purpose of that is not only to help you aim the gun, but it also gives you a magnified view of what you're pointing the gun at. So it can be very helpful. Now, another part of the barrel, which is very important in firearm terminology, is called the bore. That's the hole that goes down the middle of the barrel. And the size of that bore is what determines the caliber of a given firearm. Bores are sized in either inches or millimeters, but it's specifically the size of that bore, the inside diameter, that tells you the caliber of a given firearm. This is a .40 caliber handgun, which means that the size of that bore is 0.4 inches. So if you just take the caliber of any gun and you put a decimal point in front of it, if it's in inches, that will tell you the diameter of that bore. For a caliber that is sized in millimeters, it's simply the number in millimeters. For example, a 9mm weapon is 9 millimeters inside diameter. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. In fact, let's talk about it right now. I'm going to go through these cartridges that are all on the table in front of me, and they're arranged in order of caliber from smallest caliber to largest caliber. On this end we have some 22 caliber cartridges. On this end this is a 50 caliber cartridge. So that means that these are 0.22 inches in diameter, and this is 0.5 or 1/2 inch in diameter. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about other characteristics of a given cartridge. These three right here are all 22 caliber cartridges, which means that they all have exactly the same diameter bullet. But as you can see, they're much different in size. This is a 22 short cartridge. This is a 22 long rifle cartridge, and this is a 22 Magnum cartridge. So even though they're the same caliber, they are very different in how much power they have. The next one is a 243 caliber, so it's actually not that much bigger in caliber than a 22. The 22 is 0.22 inches, this is 0.243 inches, so just 23 thousandths of an inch bigger in diameter, but it's way more powerful. Okay, this is actually a round that can be used for big game hunting. The next one is a 40 caliber, which means it's 0.4 inches, and even though it's a larger caliber than the 243, it's actually a less powerful cartridge. The next one is a 44 Magnum caliber, so it's bigger than the previous one, but it's not the caliber that makes it more powerful, it's simply the size of the cartridge. So this is probably twice as powerful as this one. And then we have 250 caliber cartridges at the end. This is actually just an empty case. This is a 50 caliber handgun cartridge, and this is a 50 caliber rifle cartridge. So they're exactly the same caliber. They're both half an inch in diameter, but obviously this one is much more powerful than this one. So it's not just caliber that determines how powerful a given cartridge is. It's the overall characteristics of the cartridge itself. Now we want to talk about a couple more things relative to firearms. The next thing we're going to talk about is what's called the magazine. The magazine is the part of a gun that holds the ammunition. There are a few firearms that don't have a magazine. These are known as single shot firearms, and they're loaded and unloaded one round at a time. You simply open the gun, you put in a round of ammunition, you close it, you fire it, then you open it up again. Most guns have a magazine that holds ammunition, multiple rounds of ammunition. This is the magazine for this 40 caliber handgun. Okay? It goes up inside the grip. It's a removable magazine, which means that it can be loaded outside the gun and then put into the gun fully loaded with ammunition. Some guns have internal non-removable magazines. We're not going to talk about those very much at this point. As we go through the videos that are specific to each firearm, we'll talk about the magazine for that specific gun. But the magazine is simply the location in the gun that holds the ammunition so that it can be loaded into the firing chamber. Now the part of the gun that does that is called the action. The action is just the means by which a given firearm will load a round of ammunition from the magazine into the chamber and fire it and then eject the empty casing after it's been fired. So those are terms that you'll get more exposure to in later videos. You just need to understand initially what they mean. Next we're going to talk about the trigger. The trigger is something that most people are familiar with. Most people could point to this gun and show me where the trigger is. It's right here. The trigger has one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to fire the gun. When you pick up a gun for the first time, you should know exactly where the trigger is so you can stay away from it. Only a small percentage of the time that you're handling a gun will you actually be using the trigger. But you should be aware of it, and you should make sure you don't touch it, and in fact keep your fingers and hands far away from the trigger until you're actually ready to use it. So it's important to know where that is so you can avoid it. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is ammunition. And sometimes you'll hear people interchangeably use the term cartridge and bullet. They are very different. This is a cartridge, this is a bullet. In fact, this is the bullet that is sized for that specific cartridge. They're both 243 caliber bullets, which means they're 0.243 inches in diameter. Okay. The rest of what goes into a cartridge I will explain. This is called the casing, or the case. It's usually made of brass, and it's what holds all of the pieces together so that a gun can be loaded and fired very easily. Inside the case goes the gunpowder. Here I have some gunpowder in a little cup. It's just a gray granular substance. And after a casing is charged with powder, a bullet is put into it, and then a primer that goes in the back is what actually fires the gunpowder. It ignites the gunpowder. This one, as you can see, has been fired, as you can tell by the depression in the center of it. Here is a primer that has not been fired. It's just a little round device that can be replaced in a fired cartridge so that it can be used over again. And it's those four components that make up the cartridge that's used in a modern firearm. And of those four, the bullet is the only one of the four that actually leaves the gun, and it does so at very high velocity. Here's a bullet that's been fired. This was dug out of the dirt. It's kind of smashed up. But of the four things that go into the gun, only one leaves. So anyway, I think I've covered everything. Let me look at my checklist, make sure. And it looks like I have, so that concludes this video. And after you've watched this, please move on and watch the next one, which is specifically about firearms safety. See you later.